Have you ever been betrayed, disrespected, or undermined by someone, but knew that direct revenge would only damage your own image? Today, we solve the ancient problem: how to completely destroy someone's influence, power, and credibility without ever lifting a sword, raising your voice, or appearing as the villain. Have you ever noticed how the most dangerous people in any room are the ones who say the least? They watch, they listen, they disappear, then they win. You see, the moment you react, you expose yourself, you declare war, you show your hand, but the moment you go silent, they start questioning everything. They start thinking you know something, and in that pause and that heavy, chilling silence, you begin to destroy them. Machiavelli understood this. He warned rulers never to act out of impulse. When insulted, betrayed, or provoked, don't respond with fire. Fire is predictable, and predictable men lose wars before they even begin. Instead, withdraw, pull back, not as a coward, but as a king retreating to higher ground. Your absence is not weakness, it is a weapon. When you distance yourself emotionally, physically, socially, from someone who expects your anger, you steal their oxygen. They were counting on your outrage. They needed your reaction to justify their behavior, to escalate the drama, to make themselves look like the victim. But you gave them nothing. That silence becomes unbearable, because in silence, the mind goes to war with itself. Every quiet moment becomes a mirror, reflecting their guilt, their insecurity, their growing irrelevance. They start to wonder, what is he planning? Why hasn't she responded? Is something coming I can't see? That's the power of strategic absence. It infects their thoughts. You're not even in the room, but you are everywhere in their mind. You control the narrative without speaking a word. You become a ghost they can't outrun. Now understand this: not everyone deserves your presence, and not everyone can survive your absence. Mediocre people feed off attention, they crave chaos, they bait conflict. The moment you step back, you expose their neediness. You reveal just how loud and desperate they are when left alone. Let them talk, let them spiral, let them reveal everything in your silence. When you don't defend yourself, you make them over-explain. When you don't retaliate, they overcompensate. They'll scream, rant, lie, twist stories, just to get you to return to the battlefield. But you won't, because your silence has already won. You're not avoiding conflict, you're elevating above it. And from above, you can see the whole game. You can see them scrambling, burning bridges, exposing their character. And you become mystery, power, fear. Let them wonder where you went. Let them wonder what you know. Let them wonder why you're so calm. Because while they waste energy trying to provoke you, you're conserving power. You're strategizing, you're watching from the shadows. Silence makes your enemy guess, and in guessing, they stumble. But there's more. When you pull away from someone who expects access to you, your words, your time, your presence, you shift the balance of power. Suddenly, they realize they needed you more than you needed them. Your absence reminds them that you were the source, you were the center, you were the advantage they didn't value until it was gone. Now they're left alone, surrounded by nothing but their own noise. This is psychological war at its highest level. No sword drawn, no insults traded, no public spectacle, just space, silence, distance, and the quiet collapse of their image. This doesn't mean you vanish forever. No, it means you vanish long enough for the silence to echo, for your value to sink in, for their mind to turn against them. A ruler must be feared, Machiavelli said, not hated. And the man who never attacks, never insults, never fights, but simply disappears, he is feared the most. He becomes unpredictable, a myth, a legend, the kind of person no one wants as an enemy, because no one knows what he'll do next. You see, when people can predict you, they can plan around you. But when your actions come with no warning, when your silence speaks louder than their shouting, they begin to crumble. Let them feel the absence. Let them sit with the void, because eventually they will fill it with doubt, regret, fear, and defeat. And the whole time, you haven't said a word. You're simply not there. Reputation is not just your name. It's your shadow. It walks into every room before you do. It speaks on your behalf when you're silent. And when used correctly, it can destroy your enemies without you ever touching them. See, most people waste their lives trying to defend their name after it's been damaged. But the Machiavellian mind knows better. You don't wait for damage. You build your name like a fortress, stone by stone. Word by word, every action, every silence, every reaction. Calculated, refined, strategic. Because once your name carries weight, once it becomes untouchable, it starts doing the dirty work for you. Think about it. A man with a solid reputation never needs to argue. He doesn't need to explain himself. He doesn't even need to point fingers, because when someone attacks him, no one believes it. The attacker looks petty, bitter, jealous. They scream into the void, and the void answers with silence, because your reputation has already cast its vote. That's the power most people never understand. They think strength comes from clapping back, from loud declarations, from public rebuttals. But strength, real strength, is when your presence alone silences critics, when your past makes accusations look foolish, when your character makes lies look desperate. You build this power quietly, relentlessly. You treat your name like a crown, never dropped, never thrown, never passed around. Every interaction must reinforce the myth that you are stable, disciplined, dangerous, but in control. They can say what they want, but if your history contradicts their noise, their words die in the air. Now watch how this works in real time. Someone comes for you, slanders your name, tries to stain your image, but instead of firing back, you do nothing, because you've already done the work. Your name is clean. Your story is strong, and so the crowd doesn't turn to them. They turn to you. They watch your silence. They study your calm, and suddenly, they start to question the attacker. Why is he so angry? Why is she so obsessed? What does he gain by bringing this up? This is how you win without speaking. You allow your image to fight the battle. A good reputation becomes a silent army that protects you in every room you're not in. It becomes your legal defense, your loyal sword, your invisible ally. But here's what they don't tell you. A strong reputation doesn't mean being perfect. It means being consistent. Even your flaws must be intentional, predictable, controlled. If people know your limits, your values, your line in the sand, they begin to trust your character even if they fear your mind. And that fear, that quiet, growing unease about who you really are and what you're truly capable of, it becomes your greatest weapon. Because when your enemy knows your name holds more weight than theirs, they hesitate. When they know their lies won't land, they stop trying. When they realize your reputation is armor and theirs is paper, they retreat, or worse, they self-destruct. You never had to attack. You just had to be undeniable. This is the part most miss. Power doesn't always come from being feared because you're cruel. It comes from being respected because you're consistent. You're intelligent, you're deliberate. That's when your name becomes sacred, and no one dares touch it. But to reach this level, you must reject every cheap opportunity to defend yourself. Let the fools argue. Let the jealous whisper, you're not in their arena, you're above it. They are noise, you are narrative. And when people start realizing that speaking against you only makes them look unstable, they stop trying. You become the man no one wants to cross, the woman no one tries to smear, because every attempt rebounds, every lie collapses under the weight of your story. That's how you weaponize reputation. It's not about being liked. It's about being untouchable. You become a name that haunts, not because you destroy, but because no one can destroy you. And when your enemies understand that, they don't fight back, they fade. Weakness does not need to be shouted. It needs to be revealed, and the most effective way to destroy someone is not by telling others what they are, but by putting them in a position where they show it themselves. See, Machiavelli never advised open confrontation. He knew that direct accusation makes people defensive. It gives them a reason to protect their pride, justify their actions, and rally others to their side. The more you point fingers, the more you look like a threat. But when you stay silent and simply let them speak, let them act, let them perform in the spotlight, they bury themselves. The most powerful assassins of character use no blade. They simply remove the mask quietly and let the world watch. Because people believe what they see, not what they hear. If you call someone a liar, they might convince the world you're bitter. But if you let them lie freely and position them where that lie exposes itself in front of others, you never have to say a word. The illusion collapses on its own. This is where your patience becomes your weapon. You create situations that invite exposure. You place them in rooms where their behavior, their instincts, their patterns speak louder than any insult you could deliver. You ask the right question at the right moment. You give them a little rope, and they hang themselves. Imagine giving a fool too much confidence. Let them think they've won. Let them speak without interruption. Let them show off, then sit back and watch the contradictions form. They'll lie too much, boast too far, pretend too confidently, and the smarter people in the room will start to notice the cracks. They'll begin to question, not because you told them to, but because the subject revealed their own lack of substance. That is precision, that is elegance, that is power. You are not seen as the attacker. You are seen as the observer, and that gives your word even more weight if you finally do speak, because people trust silence more than they trust noise. When you don't rush to accuse, your restraint becomes a signal of credibility. But here's the deeper strategy. Don't just wait for flaws to appear. Subtly create the environment where they can't help but emerge. If someone is arrogant, give them an audience. If someone is disloyal, give them opportunity. If someone is insecure, give them praise and observe what they do with it. These are the traps that don't look like traps. These are the stage lights you turn on, and then step away. Let them perform. Because the insecure man cannot stop himself from bragging, the unstable one will overreach. The fake will talk more than they listen, and the disloyal will reveal themselves the moment loyalty becomes inconvenient. Your silence becomes the stage, your detachment becomes the test, and they expose everything, thinking they are in control. That is how you destroy someone without confrontation. You don't need to prove they are weak. You simply need to make it impossible for them to hide it. Most people try to win arguments. You don't need to win anything. You only need to hold the mirror steady. And if that mirror is placed correctly, if the light is focused just right, the reflection becomes impossible to deny. And here's the brilliance. When others begin to see the truth for themselves, they defend you for you. They see the fraud unravel. They see the chaos. And because it wasn't forced, because no narrative was shoved down their throats, they believe it more deeply. This is why direct conflict is a poor man's game. When you shout, you look insecure. When you attack, you look unstable. But when you say nothing and simply lead your enemy into their own shadow, they become the author of their own downfall. And you remain above, composed, unstained, because you never needed to destroy them. You just let the world see who they really are. Words shape reality more than truth ever could. And the one who controls the story controls everything. Machiavelli understood that power is not in events. It's in how those events are remembered. It's not in what happened, but in how the story was told. And if you are wise, strategic, and silent enough, you never have to attack your enemy. You simply shape the air around them until their world collapses without your touch. To control the narrative is to become invisible and omnipresent at the same time. It's not about lying, it's about redirecting. It's not about force, it's about suggestion. You never say what something is. You simply raise the right question, plant the right seed, and let the room water it for you. Let them connect the dots. Let them write the story for you. When you speak too directly, people become suspicious. But when they believe they discovered the truth on their own, they become loyal to it. They fight for it. They swear by it. That's the power of indirect influence. It feels like freedom, but it's manipulation wrapped in silk. Your job is not to argue. Your job is to whisper. And when you whisper into the right ear, an influential one, a curious one, a jealous one, it becomes a ripple. That ripple becomes a wave. That wave becomes the storm that takes everything down. But you remain unseen. People often assume controlling the narrative means creating a lie. That's foolish. Lies are unstable. Truth, when guided and sharpened, becomes much more deadly. You don't fabricate stories. You choose which part of the truth gets amplified, which part gets ignored, which part gets emphasized with silence. If your enemy makes a mistake, you don't announce it. You don't laugh at it. You place a quiet spotlight on it, a whisper here, a smirk there, a question asked with just enough timing to make others uncomfortable. Strange, isn't it, how often he changes his version? Did you notice how nervous she seemed? Funny, I thought he said something else last time. That's all it takes. Doubt is a slow poison. It doesn't destroy the person. It destroys belief in the person. And once that belief fades, their words collapse, their image fades, their influence rots from within, but your hands still clean because you never gave commands, you never started rumors, you simply bent the air around the facts until people heard something completely different. The key is subtlety. Too much pressure and you expose yourself. Too obvious and the spell breaks. You need finesse, precision, patience. A well-timed silence is louder than a shouted accusation. A single raised eyebrow can do more than a paragraph of protest. You don't tell the world what to think. You give the world the tools to reach your conclusion and convince themselves it was their idea all along. And here's what separates amateurs from strategists: knowing when to control the narrative and when to let it spin. Sometimes silence is the sharpest cut. You let the enemy trip over their own lies, contradict themselves, over-explain. You let their panic become the performance. Then, with perfect timing, you nudge the story just enough that everyone notices what they didn't see before. The best manipulators never change what happened. They change what people remember, control the tone, the framing, the angle, make the villain look unstable, make the victim look strong, or flip them. Not through argument, but through perception. Create moments that reinforce your version. Let their behavior reinforce the opposite. No one needs to be told who to trust. People feel it. And when you guide that feeling, when you control what they feel about a person, an event, or even an idea, you've already won. Because most people will abandon logic for the comfort of a consistent story. And you are the author behind the curtain, the one who never enters the conflict but wins the war, the one who says nothing, yet is heard in every conversation, the one who never names the enemy, but writes the story where they always lose. This is not manipulation in the childish sense. It's not about deception for its own sake. It's about control, quiet, strategic control over how the world perceives you and how the world devours those who oppose you. You never needed to destroy them directly. You simply made the world believe they deserved it. They will say you are cruel. They will say you are cold. They will say you are dangerous. Let them, because the ones who call you dangerous are the ones who failed to control you. You never raised your voice. You never lowered yourself. You never threw the first stone. But you built an aura they could not touch. You became the force they could not provoke. You let silence starve them. You let their own character betray them. You let your reputation do the killing. And you shaped the world's memory before the world ever realized it was being shaped. You destroyed them without ever appearing to fight them. That is not weakness. That is the highest form of power, because in the end, history never remembers who shouted the loudest. It remembers who framed the story, who lasted, who stood above the fire without ever being burned. So be feared without fury, be respected without noise, be remembered without ever being seen. That is how you destroy anyone, without ever attacking them. And that is how you win like Machiavelli.